Welcome to the Business Growth Journey podcast with me, Nick Termini. Today, we've got a tremendous guest, Michael Reisinger of KCBC. Michael, what's up, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Man, I'm so glad to be here, dude. I've been watching you for a while. Did the nerd out this week and did the deep dive on the podcast. So much respect, podcaster to podcaster, dude. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, man. I mean, I'm just really excited to have you on as well because I've been a fan of your show for I think 3 years now. So it's really cool to have you on and be able to share your story and talk about the KCBC. Sound good?
Yeah, dude. Sounds great.
All right, Michael. So first, to get rocking and rolling, where'd you grow up? Just kind of tell us about you a bit for the audience on the business growth journey.
Yeah, man. So I'm not from Kansas City originally. I was actually born and raised in California up until about 11 years ago. My childhood, I've talked a little bit about on my show. Obviously, that's part of coming on these podcasts. Is like the hope is like if you all hear something that you like, check out my stuff too. But basically, I played guitar at age 13, got into a metal band. Toured the US multiple times, toured the world a couple times. And I think that's where I got a lot of my people skills. Very interesting. I was in college. I dropped out because the band got signed and, we started doing music videos and touring. So it was like very clear God wanted me to go do that. And didn't get into college until later on. And I was like 30. I quit the band because I had married my high school sweetheart. And when you're in a metal band, you have to tour in order to make a living doing it because album sales do not pay the bills. And so during that point in time, my wife Stephanie and I, we're talking about what was important to us. And, we lived in Southern California and the traffic is just, it's abysmal out there. If you want to make a certain income and live in a certain area, you got to do certain things. We wanted to start a family. We were going through infertility. We had some friends who came out to Kansas City at the time. This is about, 12 years ago. And I remember Kansas City because, the band had come here and, I remember it feeling like a small town at the time. And this was like 2014 when our friends said, you got to come out and hang out. And we were here for about a week and the Royals were playing the Orioles in the World Series. As everybody knows, the year after that, they actually won the World Series. And we came back home in 2014, put our house up for sale. It sold in 6 days, like literally 6 days. And then my wife got a job here in Kansas City. And I had some friends that, worked in construction. They got me a job. We came out here. That's January 2015 now. Looking back on that, it's crazy. So I've lived here long enough to know what's what. I've lived here long enough to be able to complain about certain things, right? And also identify as a Kansas Cityan now, So, but I will say that things that played a part in my journey where I'm at now and like having this conversation with you is just, people telling me a lot like, dude, you got a voice for radio. Like, have you ever thought about building a podcast? This is like, 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, yeah, but I'm too cringy. I'm just too cringy. I'm too insecure. I'm good in one-to-one conversations, but I could have never imagined, having a podcast. And I'm sure we're going to talk about like how I got there, but that's my upbringing in a nutshell, man. From California, transplant in Kansas City.
So you brought a lot of good stuff there, Michael. So 2014 and 15 in Kansas City were insane. So like, and that was when I think the Power and Light and like Kansas City just blew up after that. Like it really grew quickly.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
How did you get into metal? Like this is fascinating because like on your show, like I've noticed you always have some awesome intros and a lot of different kind of music. Is that your music?
Yeah, so the intro music for the first few KCBC episodes, that synthwave thing, that is something that I wrote. I made that
really
actually here in Kansas City, and then that thing I used to use for 5 minutes to learn the heavy metal with the blast beats and the double picking guitar. That is one of my original songs, and I stopped doing it because I realized the longer intros, I was looking at my metrics and people drop off, right? Like I was like, man, I think I might be irritating some people with that 5 minutes to learn stuff. But I got into metal as a kid as a catharsis, man. You know, I was a rebel kid. I had great grades, but like I was kind of a troublemaker, you know, and metal and punk music was a great outlet for me. I do listen to everything. And when I say everything, I truly mean everything, like, you know, rap, country, dark wave, synth wave, metal, power metal, classic rock, rock and roll, new metal, you know, all that stuff. But I usually go back to metal like when I'm working out, I'll crank it in my headphones because then I can't hear myself gasping and wheezing while I'm getting cardio. Doing jujitsu, I love hearing metal music during jujitsu. You know, but
Yeah.
metal is just a really cool genre, man. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do with it. So I've kind of stuck with it. That's why I've got the guitar in the background too. I started putting my guitars in the background on the episodes because I want people
Yeah.
to remember who I am. But yeah, man, metal's just love metal. It hypes me up.
Okay, so how long did it take you to learn to play the guitar when you got rock and roll? Did you take lessons or did you just pick it up and figure it out?
Self-taught, man. Back in the AOL days, I used to download tablatures,
Yes.
which are not, it's not even real music. It's literally all the strings with like dashes. People would type dashes and then put a 0 for an open string and then 6 for the sixth fret. I basically just learned how to play Metallica, Pantera, Fear Factory songs. Bush was huge in my
Yeah.
youth, but I learned a power chord and
Yeah.
that was all she
Yep.
wrote after that. Then I started getting into pinch harmonics. So I'm not a classically trained musician, but I just started at 13. I just fell in love with the guitar and started getting into songwriting, and I loved writing songs and was grateful enough. I mean, we're still on Spotify now too. The last band I was in, Sinai Beach, not Cyanide Beach, but Sinai, like the
Cyanide.
Sinai province. And you know, we still get
Okay.
some plays every month, and that was well over 26 years ago. So feels pretty good to have that. But yeah, man, self-taught. It's kind of like the guy in Wedding Singer. I think it's Steve Buscemi. He goes, self-taught, no lessons. That's how I was, man. That reminds me to
Oh,
go back to the
Michael,
Wedding Singer now.
anytime I was gonna say, anytime we can get a wedding singer reference on a podcast, life is good, right? Like it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
man.
All
Yeah, for
right,
sure.
so when you and your wife looked at moving to Kansas City, what was it like? So I've lived all over the country and in different areas, and it's pretty wild when you move somewhere new, and just like, where's the grocery store? How do I meet people? Like
Where am
the
I going to get
whole
my hair
gamut
cut?
of like rebuilding your life. Yeah, who's my dentist? All this
Yeah.
stuff. Like what was it like for you guys, and what did you learn about yourself when you moved from California to Kansas City?
Man, I appreciate you asking that. No one has asked me that yet on a podcast. Really, at the time, man, I wasn't healthy, right? Like I was drinking 6 cans of beer a day. I felt like I lost all my friends. Like, you know, that's the thing I'll tell people about moving as an adult is that all those high school relationships, all your bros, or your girlfriends or whoever, you lose that immediate support system. And it is up to you to rebuild that and rebuild your life. And, you know, like our
Yep.
first jobs, they didn't work out. We rented when we
Yep.
got here because we didn't know the lay of the land. And we had some family that
Yep.
were here. And then obviously our friends from California that had relocated. So we had some counsel, but
Yeah.
you just can't prepare yourself for, you know, what you're going to go through on those times when like you feel like stuff isn't working out, or you feel like you have to rebuild. And it's like, why did we do this? We knew too, like we loved the people that we had in California. We loved our church network. That's another huge thing, is if you go to church and you're plugged in uh with people in your community, guess what? Everybody in the new area, they know nothing about you. That's a positive. It's also a negative, because if you want to truly start over, you truly can reinvent yourself. And I realized this is the banger, man. So in California, all the things that irritated me, like the traffic, um, you know, just some of the dynamics with between the different counties and how things work politically. Like when you get older, different things start becoming important to you. But I realized I was finding all of
Yep.
that stuff in Kansas City, and I realized the problem was me. I'm like, man, I will whine about traffic wherever I go. This traffic in Kansas City, at least at the time too, it was a joke compared to California. But I had to reflect, dude, like internally and go, yeah, I think the problem is me here. Like I'm actually finding things. Whatever you keep in your mind and continually swirls around, you will find. What's in your mind, you will find, right?
Yep.
And so that was probably the biggest thing for me was realizing, okay, now what? And what do I do about it? You know, because it's not going to change. So yeah, that was probably one of the biggest things was reflecting internally and saying, okay, I got to make friends as a grown ass man. I have to make friends as an adult now. And what do adults talk about out here in Kansas City? And then that was what led me to realize that like we all have multiple things in common. And so finding those connecting
Yeah.
points. But I had some people I met when I first got here, like we were really close. And just like everything else, like you grow apart or you change jobs and you don't get to see that person anymore or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's just life, man. But going through all that, and me and my wife growing up in California together, I mean, we've been together since we were 17 years old. It was good to have her with me too. And we kind of figured it out together.
So right after college, I moved to Virginia Beach all by myself, and
From where? Where did you
I
live
was not
originally?
mature enough. Kansas City. So I grew up
Okay.
here,
Yeah.
and moving out there, I lived a block off the beach in a bar district, and that was a dangerous place for a high energy Nick Termini. And so some of the things you're talking about is the mindset of but also taking ownership of your own life and realizing, hey, this is going the way I want to or I don't want it to. It's up to me to make that change. And however it
Yeah.
goes, life is a mirror, and whatever I'm putting out there is coming from me, right? And so
Absolutely.
when I moved back to the Midwest, I moved to Des Moines, and my college roommate and his wife were there. And part of the reason I moved there was because of that and being able to have family time and like uh structured environment where I'm just not out in the land of the lost, right? And so I completely appreciate what you're saying, because there's a lot of things in the journey of moving somewhere else. Well, I wasn't married when I was, so it was just me, but being able to evaluate where you are and who you are at that time and have a vision to where you want to get, because they don't always match and you got to make some changes. So like you talking about the mindset and fixing what you see, that's it's pretty important part to get to where you want to go, right?
Absolutely. And that is ultimately what will serve you in when you're ready for bigger battles, you know. If traffic makes you mad and ruins your entire day, guess what? You're not going to be able to do much after that. It's just like leadership, right? Like so many people think because
Yeah.
they become strong individual contributors that they're automatically, and their companies
Yep.
set them up for failure too. They think they're going to be great leaders, but it's like, no, as a leader, guess what? Your success is no longer dependent upon the stuff you produce. It's based on what your team produces, you know? And so I know I
Yeah.
jumped really far ahead there, but at the same time, it's like I realize like if I get triggered by all this like regular everyday stuff, I'm never going to be able to
Yeah.
handle the bigger things, you know? So it
N-
serves you,
oh,
reflecting
100%.
serves you
Well,
in the future.
but also like, so as we're marching ahead to when you started the KCBC, I think it's important to be able to show like moving somewhere is doing a hard thing that you chose to
Big
do. So
time.
then you got to live with that decision, right? But learning to do hard things, like it's just like you're talking about, like being able to lead people or manage people or just grow yourself. Like, how has learning to do hard things and putting yourself out there helped you grow?
Oh man. Yeah. It's subjecting myself to uncomfortable situations on a daily basis has made me there's a strength. It's just like weight training, right? Like to get stronger, you have to tear muscle. Um, they say too, like, to be a good leader, your success as a leader, I can't remember the book. I got my bookshelf back there. I'm sure you got a ton of books
Yeah.
that you've read too. But
Uh,
like they say your
yeah.
success as a leader is based on the amount of uncomfortable or difficult or challenging conversations you've been willing to have. And if you get your
Yep.
reps in, just like the gym, if you lean into the hard things, you will grow in more ways than you can possibly imagine. But it gives you this like mental dexterity in situations to where if you, for example, if you had, 50 hard conversations and this person says something in the workplace or in business or wherever it is, doesn't matter. And it starts to remind you of what led to those other 50 hard conversations, your muscle memory and your
Yep.
capacity, your ability, like in crucial conversations, the first rule is start with heart, right? Like that will then
Yep.
become your instinct. And when that is your instinct, it makes all the rest of that stuff go so much easier because you've been willing to face all the hard things, And so
Yep.
the gym thing, I know it's a tired old analogy, but I constantly go back to that. And I tell people, it's funny at work now, like when I encourage somebody, they're telling me maybe about difficulty they had with a department or I when I was really active with VAS, my consulting firm, I had a client who was looking to bring on her first employee. And when she had to have that first conversation, I'm encouraging her to do it. And when she went and did it, I said, good job getting your reps in, right? It's just getting the reps in and knowing that you're going to
Yep.
have good days in the gym. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have that day too where the most you could bench press was the bar. And then all of a sudden you're showing up and you're adding 25-pound plates on it. Well, you're handling
Yep.
25-pound plate conversations, So it really is in the reps, dude. It's just consistently
Yep.
subjecting myself to the hardest thing that presents itself for the day. One of those authors back in the day called it eating the frog, like,
Eat that
the,
frog, baby,
yeah.
Brian Tracy.
And yeah, thank you. And then there's that pre-Mac principle where it's like, if you take care of the hardest thing first, everything after that is a reward. So like those people that have the
Yeah.
stuff on their Outlook calendar and they push it to the end of the day, it's like, no, make that the first thing that you handle because then it's going to feel, wow, I got
Yep.
momentum. Everything else is easy after that. But man, I know I could talk to you about that all day, dude. Like it's so important
Oh, this
to
is
do
good
that.
stuff, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so as you're getting settled in Kansas City, you're kind of rebuilding your life, right, with your wife.
Yep.
At what point did the KCBC, the Kansas City Business Cast, become a twinkle in your eye? Like when was this thing invented, and how did you start to get the vision for what it would look like?
Yeah, it came to me in the worst moment of my life. March 2023, I get a call from my boss. It's a Friday morning. I'm getting ready to just attack the day. At the time, I'm doing really well in my role. I was ready to take on a new role. I was already a manager of engineering. I had some industrial engineers that reported to me, and I get the call and says, Michael, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. And I was part of a massive reduction in force at this company. And fast forward 6 months later, the company closed down. And I told everybody
Yeah.
in that journey, I was like, God gave me a head start on the inevitable. But basically, March 2023, I start doing what I know, which is, I'm an employee mindset type guy at the time. Like all I've ever done is work for other companies. And it was so
Yep.
hard to get an interview. And I was just like, I bet at the time I'm going through this entrepreneurship cohort through my church network where they're trying to teach us like
Yeah.
entrepreneurs mindset. And, being a person that worked in knowledge work for like almost my entire professional career, I was like, you know what? Sometimes I give people ideas and there's a lot of money attached to those ideas. Like the things I know, I could
Yeah.
probably build into products or whatever. And so I launched VAS, which stands for Vocati Ad Servidium, or it's called to serve in Latin. I would later shorten it to VAS LLC. And because this is about 3 months into my layoff, I started going to networking groups. I started talking to other business owners. I started talking to people in nonprofits. That then introduced me to people who were like creators and all that. And it just became evident to me in June 2023, I'm having these awesome conversations. I might as well start recording
Yeah.
them. And anybody out
Yeah.
there listening to this knows what it's like to have a really impactful conversation and walk away and think, man, I wish that would have been recorded. I wish I had the cliff notes from that conversation or whatever. It's like, that is where you realize, especially at business owners, I encourage so many people, make a podcast for your company. Like, you're doing this stuff already. Why don't you just get
Yeah.
somebody to record it on your phone? It doesn't matter, but like, document your journey, right? And so I
Yep.
just basically picked 6 of my friends to be my first 6. Actually, my wife was episode 1, dude, right? And just
I
to
saw that. Yeah, that was
yeah, I
awesome.
thank you, man. And like, I was doing them at my dinner table, okay? Like, they were audio only,
Yeah.
and I just had my friends just sit across the table from me. And, those first few episodes, they're like 2 hours long, dude, because like, I can talk without stopping. And they were willing, but these were people that were willing to just give me a shot. They weren't embarrassed to help me start up a podcast with like my terrible artwork and like being audio only and having
Yeah.
no video and all that. So, but once I started to do that, I started building momentum and I connect with people. And I just found so many people in our city that had been where I was, and they were willing to help me out by just coming on, talking about what they
Yeah.
know. And that's how it started. I know we'll talk a little bit more about, what's happened, what I've learned and all that, but that's really where it began, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
June 2023, the first episode launched October 2023. And so yeah, I'm gonna get to, it'll be 3 years in October, man. And I'm proud of that. So
Congrats, man. No,
yeah, dude.
that's it's a huge accomplishment. And I mean, it's a lot of fun too, right? Like,
It
how
really is.
how have you grown since starting the podcast?
Yeah, man. So, originally it became very burdensome, right? Because like, I would spend like a day, 2 days. My workflow, I think it was good, but because I was so obsessed with perfection, I would edit out every ah, every idiosyncrasy, every imperfection. I went on a Deadpool tangent in one of the episodes, and I cut like
Yeah.
15 minutes from the episode because I just thought, "Oh, what a dumb thing to say." And when I talked to my guest about it, she was like, "Dude, why didn't you leave that in there? That was hilarious. That was amazing." And so I was like, I was in this weird moment in that first year where I was like starting to realize it's unsustainable the way I'm doing it. Like, my wife was,
Yeah.
I've talked about this on my show, sending the kids down, "Daddy, dinner's ready." And I'd say, "I'll be up in 5 minutes." 15 minutes later, "Dad, your dinner's cold. I'll be right up." Then with my wife bringing me my plate, because I was down here in the office just editing and I was obsessing over all these details. And dude, how thankless it is in the beginning. You're like, man, I spent a day, 2 days, not to mention I mapped my workflow of guest outreach, time it took to prepare. Uh, and there was a moment where I went to the studio for a while. I had a buddy who was letting me rent his studio space, and that's where I had people like Cam
Yeah.
F.
Yeah.
Awesome came on my show, but it was still audio
Yeah.
only. And so I started to realize my workflow was the reason why I wasn't having joy anymore. I wanted to add video.
Yeah.
I cringed at the idea of having like a Zoom podcast. But then after seeing so many people do it, I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? It's better than nothing. Like, I could figure this out. So the way I've grown the most
Yeah.
is just refining my workflow. Now I do solo episodes. We can talk about how I got into that. But my workflow, dude, is literally now I have the conversation on a Saturday morning. I go to the episode in
Yeah.
Riverside. I make a couple little tweaks and then I export it. I don't even watch the whole episode anymore. And that
Yeah.
right there has saved me to embrace my own cringe and realize people actually want to hear a real conversation. The reason why Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, all these people, their podcasts are huge. It's not just because of their guests and the production quality. It's because people want to hear people talk. And I started my
Yeah.
show because there was a lot of bigger podcasts where it was so scripted and it was so polished. I'd listen to them and I'd go, I don't even feel like these are real people, like, I don't even feel like it's a real conversation. Like, nobody I know, when people
Yeah.
start talking to me the way these guys are talking to each other, I go, what are you trying to sell me? And there's a place for polished conversation, but that's truly not me. And whenever I've tried to do that, people don't like it and they call it out. They go, dude, like, what are you doing, man? You're putting on a mask. You're disguising your voice and all this other stuff. So my growth has been just huge. And it was actually from guests checking me saying, I've talked about it.
Yeah.
Bear and Gabriel, Bear Halverson from Security Day podcast, shout. Gabriel Garcia from To Bring About podcast, shout. Those guys really told me, they said, bro, you don't have to edit yourself so much, and that has been the
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah.
growth, man. And my family, they obviously love it now too, because I've got hard stops and I've got boundaries around this thing, because it's really easy as a creator to not have boundaries, and you have to if you want it to be sustainable.
Okay, so Michael, one of the things when I first noticed your podcast, I was like, man, this guy's got style. Who puts together like your artwork, your design? Like, how did all that come together? The
Yeah.
vision for just all the cool colors and design.
That's all me, dude. If I could give somebody the credit for it, I totally would, because that's my style. But man, I'm an 80s kid, right? Like, I love the
Yeah.
return of the synth wave, retro wave vibes. Movies are starting to come out. Musical artists that are basically copying the Cure and Depeche Mode are coming out, and I realized nobody would have liked the metal look to my show. So, like, all the darkness and all that stuff. So I was like, if I had
Yeah.
bright colors and I brought that synthwave vibe in, what would that look like? And when Canva released their AI media,
Yeah.
I just started playing with prompts. And so all of the artwork for my episodes, I have my guests send me a headshot, of course. And then all of that episode artwork, that is from AI prompts. I figure it out. I make it look a certain way. Canva, I know professional folks laugh at it, but I think Canva is the working woman's podcast tool for visuals. And so, yeah, man, I bring it all together, and it really comes from my background as a musician. Like, when we were working with Travis Smith, a very famous metal artwork guy, he did the artwork for one of our albums called Immersed. That back and forth and like building the logo and like making sure things were visually appealing, that was something that we were really involved in. And I love that you noticed that, dude, because that's how I've gotten on other shows, like the boys from Ozone Layer Media. That's how they noticed the show as well. They're like, man, I love you. You have all this space stuff, and you got, this 80s vibe and stuff. So yeah, man, that's all me.
Yeah.
And even that workflow has cleaned up as well. Like, I use templates. I'll try to start the artwork the day before the episodes. Then when the episode's done, I can just post it. It's part of my creative process. So, man, thanks for asking about that and let me riff on that. Appreciate that.
Well, Michael, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, right? And I think, the way I have set up my podcast is I've got my producer and marketing team that does everything, right? So I just get on, record, and I turn it over to them. Like you said, I don't watch it. I don't like just get overly critical of myself, because I did in the beginning. I was like, for what? It's like,
Truly.
This is for fun, to learn, to grow, to create a platform, to showcase others, right? And so, the way that you've done it is way harder. Like, to be able to put everything together yourself and go through each part of the process. I think it's cool because, like, you have a vision for what you want to look for, and you're always working towards that. But the colors, like, your podcast is a vibe, man, right? Like,
I appreciate
it's got
that, brother.
cool music attached to it. Like, you bring a lot of fun energy to it, and your guests are tremendous too. So, I just have a lot of admiration for what you've done. And then hearing that you've done it all yourself is incredible, because I took a different approach in building the team around it to kind of be a little more hands off. As you've done the podcast, right? Like, I remember my first one in the beginning, I had like these 3 segments that I was going to do. And I had these questions where I was going to try to follow it. And it was a total flop. I had one of my buddies I grew up with is my first guest. And he had a podcast, a dental podcast, where I think he did like 250 episodes or something like that, like a lot. And he was like guiding me on what questions to ask during the podcast. And I'm like, I got to scrap this, man. Like, I am not a structured guy. I don't need to try to be something I'm not. And he's like, look, man, ditch the questions. He's like, it's a good workflow. it's good to help people prep. Like, how do you prep, and like how have you built your podcast and evolved that part of the process?
Yeah, man. Gosh, such a good reflection from you there, man. I That resonates so much with me, man. My process for prep, yeah, that's part of the workflow. So no workflow survived
Yep.
the first year. I took a fearless inventory of everything that was not working and realized it was rooted in things that, like, to be something I'm not, even though you don't intentionally think that, you're
Yeah.
trying to, like, emulate what you see other podcasters do, or like, you mentioned at one point in one of our previous conversations, like the news anchor or whatever, like you're trying to emulate. And what I did was I started off with a form. I use a Microsoft form, and it was like, I it was 20 questions, but I never released that one. I got it down to 15. The first 8 were: give me your links, give me your business name, please spell your first and last name, like give me some of this stuff, like your phone number, because I want to get in touch with you, give me your availability. Like, I was
Yeah.
trying to make it easier. If they did that work up front, I would know that they're serious about coming on the show, and then I wouldn't have to bug them
Yep.
later for all that stuff, right? And so, after
Yeah.
having I've actually had more guests turn me down than guests I've had on my show. And there's a lot in that. We can talk, let's get into that later, but I refined my
Yeah.
form, and now it's like 3 meaningful questions. I tell everybody, seriously, take 5 minutes to do this. Do not sit there
Yep.
and try to make these answers perfect. This is for me to understand why you want to come on this show, especially people who've been on multiple
Yep.
shows. They don't want to talk about the same thing they've talked about before. So maybe they've got a new product
Yeah.
coming out, or they have a new show, or like in Daniel Davis's
Yeah.
episode 2 weeks ago, he's got an event coming up he wants to promote. It's like, tell me about that so I don't come in and then you're pissed at me the entire time because I'm asking you a bunch of stuff you don't want to talk about. So there's that thing of
Yeah.
in the beginning. And I've worked through that with guests too. Like, there's a few guests that, like, we were good friends, and I told them, "Don't worry about the form. Just tell me when you want to come on the show." And that made it a lot
Yeah.
easier, and they were able to come on. And just, I try to prep as much as I can. Like, I will do research on the people. I'll find everything they've ever been on. I'm like a private investigator, dude. Like, I will look up everything they've done. And when I pull out facts, like when I'm talking to them beforehand, I go, "Yeah, I noticed it seems the last show podcast episode you were on, it was like 3 years ago. What's happened
Yeah.
since then? Like, I know how much change occurs in the year or whatever." And because I've done that, they've go, "Oh man, this guy's paying attention. Like, this guy gets it,
Yeah.
And then they're
Yep.
open. They trust me. And that's the other thing, is that I always make sure that my guests, I present them in the best possible light. And so I'll ask them
Yeah.
after we record too. I go, "Hey, is anything too cringy or anything that you shared that you don't want out? Maybe it's company information or whatever." Because sometimes people get going. And so I'll have that
Yeah.
conversation. And then I've also, sorry, jumping ahead again, I ask my guests to, like, leave me a review. I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to put in some effort. I'm going to spend about, 6 hours total combined of posting reels and all that stuff. Can you just leave me a 5-star review on Spotify? Can you leave me a review on Apple Podcasts?" Like, because that helps me in the search. That's one thing you can do. And
Yep.
most people are like, "Oh my gosh, easy done." Dude,
Yeah.
I'll do it right now, or I already did it, or whatever. So, but
Yep.
yeah, my prep process is pretty thorough, and I learned that too from other guys that I've podcasted with.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an approach. So
So from when you started the podcast to now, I mean, it's been what, 3 years, right?
almost 3, yeah, coming up in October.
So what type of opportunities has this opened up, and just like some of the people you've been able to met, relationships you built, like there's a lot of things that when you start a podcast you don't realize are going to multiply after. And
Yeah.
like I'm just curious, like what are some of the things that you've come across that maybe you didn't get into this for, but it was cool opportunities that came about?
Yeah, man. So, everything that I am today, that I have today, I know this is going to sound extreme, but it is thanks to this podcast. And I will break it down. One of the first things I realized, I think it was in season 3, I got my first sponsorship. I had a previous guest had come on the show. I said, "Hey, what would you think about this idea? I could do an ad for your business. You could have some sort of promotion for my listeners. Um, how does that sound?" And they were like, "Yeah, that sounds great." I did a script for them. I did an ad. I put it in the very beginning of the episode, and they gave me some money to help out, and I used that to get some equipment. That was
Yep.
really cool. I actually had three seasons of this show that were sponsored. Black Drip Coffee, shout out to them too. They said, "Hey, we'd love to give all of your guests a free bag of Black Drip Coffee on season,
Oh,
I think it was
wow.
6." And so I did that. And I said, "Hey, as a part of coming on the show today, I'm going to get you this Renegade blend, all that." So that was really cool. I also was challenged because so many guests, man. I mean, you know how it is, man. They ghost you, or they say yes, and then they look at your numbers and they go, "Oh, 400 followers, three views on YouTube, all that," and then they just ghost you, right? I've had some really high profile people, man, that like we kicked it off really well, and it looked like it was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And so when I started to get through that, I was inspired by my buddy John from I-70. Man, he goes, my first solo episode happened because somebody was supposed to pull up. We had all the stuff set up and they didn't show. And I said, you know what, forget it, let's go. And he just started going. And so I was like, wait a minute, I had the 5 minutes to learn segments for teaching business acumen. I might as well just start doing solo episodes. And then I started getting reps on solo episodes, and that made it, because I abandoned all hopes of not being cringy. I'm going to say cringy things. People are going to drop out. People are going to
Yeah.
not listen to the show anymore. But by doing that, I'm going to get better. And man, so that's one of the growth areas. When I started the podcast, I was about 60 pounds heavier than I am now. And I had gained weight after COVID, right? Like I was real,
Mhm.
I had best shape of my life before COVID. Then COVID happened. I gained all this weight. And by
Yeah.
having all these fitness professionals on the show, I became a founding member of Beastified Gym. Gabriel said, "I hope one day you can return to jujitsu, man. I really do." That was 2 years ago. And man, I started jujitsu like 6 months later. I just celebrated getting my blue belt last weekend. My
Congrats,
daughters,
man.
thanks, dude. My daughters now do jujitsu at the place I'm at. Like, I've lost 40 pounds in the last 5 months. Like, uh, the conversations in the hallways in my day job are incredible because some people have noticed that too. Um, I've had close friends that I have known my whole life listen to a 5 minute episode and go, "You just gave me exactly what I needed. I've been having XYZ struggle for whatever." And dude, the cringiest solo episode I've ever done, I got a compliment from a previous coworker that I had not seen in 5 years and said, "Hey, just so you know, I've been watching your podcast." I had no idea they were paying attention. I was able to have a conversation with my leader about owning what I can own. And I started making changes and I just got promoted. Now I'm managing the team. That was birth. I'm not saying I did that for that person, but because of something I said in a moment that I dismissed, broke through to that one person, and it changed the course of their career. And when I hear stuff like that, I go, it does not matter that I have 115 subscribers on YouTube. It does not matter what people think about where my podcast should be. People have asked me, especially in the year I was laid off, "Are you making any money doing that?" Like, you have to make money to have meaning, right? And I my response has become like, "Well, I'm getting paid in other ways. Like, I'm I'm inspired. I'm working out my weaknesses. I'm doubling down on my strengths. I'm connecting with some of the most amazing people." And because most people have not heard of the people that I have on my show, I'm shining a light
Yeah.
on the everyday heroes, the people that we're all doing life with, right? Because, eh, you know, some of the coolest people I've ever met, they've never done a TED Talk. They've never written a New York Times bestseller. They're just They're just
Yep.
wise sages that are just doing life. And they've inspired me. And that's the thing now, dude. This is one of the biggest payoffs for the podcast. I don't quote celebrities too much anymore. I'm like inspired by my friends and people I've had on the show and people who've had me
Yes.
on their
Yes.
show. Like that's the thing. I've gotten to tell my testimony on other shows because I did
Yeah.
this. So I've gotten to talk about my
Yep.
alcohol addiction. I've gotten to talk about 10 years of infertility. And I've gotten to talk about beating morbid obesity like 3 times
Mhm.
because I did this. And so, dude, literally everything. This opportunity to talk to you right now, dude, it's not lost on me how much of a gift this is and how much a gift you are and your podcast and the work you're doing. This
Thank
is
you.
the real deal, dude, because like we're in the trenches, we're doing this. We're not Club Shay Shay, we're not Joe Rogan, but the statistics too on what most podcasts, you've already passed your podcast has already passed the typical dropping off point. Most people don't get past 3 episodes, right? And I know the numbers are in flux and all that stuff,
Okay.
but like, you know, it there's all types of barriers I've broken through in my life. Sorry, again, I could talk all day on this subject. Hopefully,
I
I
love
stayed
it,
on
man. This is
subject there,
great
but
because,
dude, it's everything to me now,
hey,
man.
no, this is what it's all about because in the journey of growth, right? Like you go through the hero's journey where there is the struggle and the low points that climb back up. And as you're talking about, issues with alcohol, weight, I'm sure there's like a lot of head trash in there too that's part of that, right?
Oh yeah, for
And so
sure.
being able to be resilient and overcome those things, like that's truly where the juice is in the journey. And being able to look at how far you've come. I mean, dude, this is cool stuff having you on here and just being able to share that because it's real. And I think, you don't ever know what somebody else is going through. And just because they have like a certain look or put together one way or another, you don't really know what they have going on. And so,
Right.
for you to even be able to open up and share that is huge because somebody else may hear and be like, oh yeah, it seemed like it was just me. Like what being in your own head's a lonely place, man.
It really is. Yeah, it's scary.
So
It's a scary spot.
so there was something else. Oh, there's a lot of things you said there. There's just gold, Michael. I
Thanks,
knew
brother.
some gold was coming, man. And
Yeah.
when you were talking about something that you had on a podcast, a topic, or just a 5 minute part, what we think is like on or off, but somebody else perceives it and receives it a different way, and it hits them where you're like, "Wow, you like that? Like that wasn't on
Yeah.
my radar at all, right?"
Yeah.
And then another thing too that I've learned in doing my podcast is you know I choose the guest based on what I'm interested in, what I like. And
Yep.
so I focus on if I like it, then I don't really care how everything else goes because I'm here to build great relationships, create a platform for awesome people that are doing cool stuff. And really, like for me, it's a front row seat to ask really smart people questions so I can learn. Right. And
Yeah.
like, have you taken that approach? And like, what are some of the things that have stood out that you've learned? Like, you've said several things on here where I'm like, oh, that's gold, man. This is good
Yeah.
stuff. Like,
Good thing
how
we're
do you
recording it, bro.
always, and like you were talking about just getting started is the hardest part because I thought about doing a podcast for like 2 years. And then it's like the how is where I got lost. And how is where good ideas go die, right?
Yep.
Because people get stuck. So like for you, how what are the things that you like love about doing your podcast right now? Like you've talked a lot about it, but like what is it the part that fills your cup up the most in addition to the relationships and the opportunities?
Yeah. So a couple things you had said there, I wanna comment on too really quickly. So like, um, the oh man, what was it that you said before you asked what I love about doing podcasts? Um, gosh, I'm sorry, Nick.
The
Um,
resilient. No, I got on a roll
oh,
there. Sometimes,
resiliency.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
the visionary thing. Okay, so first off, like I've known way too many visionaries in my life, and
yeah.
I say that because, in the EOS framework, rocket fuel, right? They talk
Yeah.
about the visionary and then they talk about the integrator. The
Yep.
reason why that concept is so popular is because most visionaries do not have the stones. They don't want to do the hard work.
Yeah.
They're idea guys, right? And
Yep.
I love idea guys, but there's nothing that irritates me more. And this comes from a very deep, dark place, right? Because
Okay.
I've promised a lot of shit in my life that I never followed up on back in the day. Thankfully, I get to say back in the day, but I am not just a talker. And when
Yep.
people just talk about what they're going to do, but they don't want to do the work, that is where I started to realize that, like, I needed to actually build the how muscles too.
Yep.
And and if not, get somebody who's okay with being a how person in our relationship, right? And so that how piece has been one of the most grueling, but also one of the most discipline and consistency building
Yep.
things that's helped me to embrace the suck sometimes.
Yeah.
And then reconnect to my why, which is what I've enjoyed, which is your final question, right?
Yeah.
What you had just said. And what I've really enjoyed is, you know, the people who had never been on a podcast before and they came on my show, it was their first experience, that the testimonies from them saying, I've been able to share this with family, friends, clients. I had a guest on previously that shared it with all 500 of their clients. They put it in their company newsletter.
Oh, cool.
And the the feedback that they got, and that was the first show that they came on, right? Was my show. Getting that, I enjoy that. I enjoy, just like my days as a musician, we would record songs and we'd write an album, and then boom, it's there. It's got the artwork, and now in the digital age, you can access it wherever. But to see my name in the writing credits, that's pretty cool. It's not exactly why I do it. I don't want the credit necessarily, but
Yeah.
to have something galvanized that was in my brain, in my gray matter, that became reality, that I created, it's that creative process. That's what I love the most, is being an actual creator and an
Yep.
artist and saying, "Hey, right now at this point in my life, KCB is a mechanism of delivering art, the art of conversation, the art of testimony, the community, the collaboration." And that's what I constantly go back to when I'm having hard days or hard months. When I took my break last year, I took a 5-month break because
Yeah.
I had 6 guests in a row cancel on me. And I was like, you know what? God, point taken. I've been getting burned out anyway. I'm gonna take a
Yeah.
break. And then I did the work in that break. I didn't stop working. I worked on my mindset, all that. Now I've done 28 episodes since January. And a lot of those are solo episodes, but I got my momentum back because I reconnected to my why, man. And it's that creative process. That's what I love the most.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right, Michael. So we're getting to a point where we got to wrap up.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us about what's the future look like for the KCBC?
Yeah, man. So I've really got it in my mind. 100 episodes is a goal. That's a milestone that I want to
Awesome.
make it to. I
Yep.
also realize there's a tension with me right now and my wife, not tension between us, but with our platforms. We want to get in person. Those in-person conversations I had, those first 23 episodes that were audio only,
Yep.
I love that. I've gotten to go on my buddies' shows that everybody can look up after this. I know you're gonna post a link or whatever to
Yeah.
my stuff, but like those in-person conversations, I really want to get to a point. The problem with that is the money, the cost, right? So like a Sony FX30 camera, that's like a $3,000 camera. And that is my expectation. I'm like, I can't have the potato camera anymore. Like I can't have USB link. I want to have the right look, the right feel, knowing that we can't produce it ourselves. Like I've got to find a way. I think KCBC will always have a place. One thing I realized though is that I wanted to open it up to outside of Kansas City. So I've been marinating on and designing what the next podcast will be. I can't say when it'll be. I don't want to talk about the topics that I'll cover,
Yeah.
but KCBC's been a great gateway drug into all kinds of other things. So I'm going to continue doing this because I can do it from my house. I love the topics. It's a way for me to keep myself relevant, I guess, in the method of creating and keep getting my reps. But we'll see, man. We'll see where it goes. But I'm going to keep doing it and keep doing the solo episodes. That's the thing I'm happy about now too. I've gotten a lot of solo
Yeah.
episodes under my belt, but that's the way I processing out loud is one of my ways of actually learning anyway. So to do it on
Yeah.
a podcast and then have those few people that kind of regularly listen and give me feedback, it's kind of a cool cheat code as well. So, but yeah, man, I'm going to keep it up. So
100%, man. Well, first of all, thank you for doing the KCBC, because it's incredible to be able to hear, your perspective, but also the guests you have on, and when you do your solos. I mean, it's just really good stuff, man. And you
I
offer a
appreciate
really
that.
cool, fresh perspective. So, it meant a lot to me to have you on today, and this is cool stuff, man. Being able to collaborate with awesome people is what this has been all about for me. So I love it, man.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for what you're doing and staying consistent as well, dude. I know it's a grind. I know you're connected to your why. I know that you're enjoying the conversations that you have. You have a team, dude. That's a recipe for success, and that's one thing. One last thing I'll say too is that's been huge for me is that this has really helped me challenge my expectations. I think I'm going to have a solo episode coming out about expectations coming out soon. And I've really level set myself and reconnected with gratitude for everything that this has brought, right? And gratitude in those small things, because that's what helps me. Life is full of thousands of tiny moments, right? Like we're not just always looking for the next big hit of dopamine of
Yep.
success or whatever. Like you got to find that the gratitude in the smaller things, and so it's
Yeah.
really helped me with that. So yeah.
So, Michael, last question before we wrap
Yeah.
up, and then let's get a plug in if we could. But what's advice that you would give, somebody in business? I mean, you've had the opportunity to
Yeah.
build up your own awesome network, and your own awesome show, and talk to a tremendous amount of business people. What is just some of the advice or things that you've seen that you'd like to offer up for our crowd here?
Yeah, I think improve yourself, improve your household, improve your neighborhood, and then go start improving other things. I think every business owner, the reason why certain things don't work out is because I think people are not reflecting and committing to action enough.
Yep.
Edward Deming's PDCA cycle, plan, do, check, act, the scientific method of business, right? As
Yep.
a business owner, you have to have rapid cycles of PDCA. Hey, I got a hypothesis. I have a theory. I'm going to make a product. Here's what I'm going to do, the D and do. Then
Yep.
I'm going to check. I'm going to check on my findings. And then that A, that is a huge uppercase size 175 point font A of act. And it is a constant cycle. And like I've had guys on my show, the reason why their companies are $1 million companies is because they are not afraid to do and try and
Yep.
fail and fall on their face. And they will try and fail 7 times before the next guy even decides to even try his idea. And so
Yes.
the repetition, dude, and the internal reflection, I mean, honestly, so often, man, the problems we have with other people, it's because we got something in here. Like,
100%.
and so all of my best friends and all of my trusted advisors, they are people that will look in the mirror, they will check themselves, and they will commit and they will actually do better every time. Even if it's 0.002% better,
It's Yep.
they are going to commit to that. And so that's why I just recommend for every business owner, every successful business owner that I have had on the show wasn't afraid to do that. And then they also weren't afraid to bring in some people they could trust. They found the right people, they read books, they did whatever it took to change their mindset, man.
Oh, Michael, this is gold, man. Thank you. All
Yeah.
right. So if you could, in closing, just tell us,
Yeah.
how do anybody that hasn't heard KCBC, how do they find you, and what,
Yeah.
fire away?
Yeah. So we post our podcast on YouTube at KCBC TV. We're on Spotify. Just search Kansas City Business Cast, and same thing for Apple Podcasts. So we put our
Yep.
podcast there. If you want to follow us on the socials, we have Kansas City Business Cast on Instagram. It's at KCBC 913. We're on LinkedIn. Nick, thank you, dude, for always engaging with the LinkedIn stuff. I feel like that is a totally slept on social platform for business. And the
Yeah.
fact that you have a business podcast, you're on LinkedIn. But yeah, we're on LinkedIn too. You'll see Nick and I supporting each other there. And then
Yep.
we have a Facebook page as well. So basically, in summary, podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Socials are Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
Awesome. Michael, thank you for being on the Business Growth Journey podcast, man.
Yeah,
This is
brother.
amazing.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.